Welcome, everyone, to another edition of The Travel Show with your host, Ted Blank of Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure. And as we do every Thursday, we like to chat it up about all things travel. And we are going to continue with the message of love on this Valentine's week and talk about something love-related. But first of all, happy anniversary to you. We are celebrating 2 years.
We're celebrating 2 years
radio
on the radio.
Bliss.
Radio Joy, yes.
Yeah, Radio Joy. And before we went on the air, you told me you didn't think it was going to last.
I didn't, but I guess we proved those doubters wrong.
Yes, we did. So happy second anniversary to you. And
Thank you.
I know that we're going to continue talking about love. Last week we chatted it up about weddings and destination weddings and how you can help people with those. You know, sometimes the whole marriage license thing and travel
for some
of the
people,
whole
they're a great
party
option.
doesn't
For other
work.
people, it's not a good option. So,
But
absolutely,
honeymoons.
yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that today.
Let's do that.
What do I need to know? First
The-
honeymoon, second honeymoons?
Both honeymoons,
Anniversary
both
trips?
honeymoons, anniversary moons, baby moons. People even
I've heard of
have.
those.
You know, I think it's really a chance to get away after a wedding and just kind of relax and connect as a couple. And, you know, the lead up to a wedding, whether it's a destination wedding or whether it's a wedding here at home, it's pretty stressful, I think, for the bride and for the groom. And, you know, you have a lot of people who have opinions and a lot of people who are happy to share those opinions and, you know, a lot of moving pieces. I mean, photographers and makeup artists and tuxedos and venues and officiants and all those kinds of things. And so I think it's a really stressful time for the people who are getting married. And so a honeymoon is a great opportunity just to kind of decompress, relax, recharge, but also have some time together as a couple that you probably don't get as much of in the lead up to the wedding.
So what are some popular honeymoon locations?
Well, honeymoon destinations are about as unique as each bride and groom. And the top three are actually Mexico, Jamaica, and Italy. Those are the top three honeymoon destinations. But I've had people go on honeymoons to Greece, to Bora Bora in the South Pacific, to Belize, to France, all over the world. It really depends on what the bride and groom want. And, you know, I've had people who have done resort honeymoons where they go to a resort and just kind of stay and relax. I've had people go to Italy for hiking trips, Greece for cruises. So it's just so many options out there for people that it really comes down to what the bride and groom are the most interested in doing.
And how do you help figure that out?
Yeah, so that's an example of a situation where we want to have a good conversation pretty far in advance. You know, these are the kinds of trips we do want to plan pretty far in advance, just to get an understanding of what each member of the couple is looking for. What are some of their likes? What are some of their dislikes? And what's the budget, both in terms of time and in terms of money? You know, if you want to go to Italy for a honeymoon, a week is a pretty short amount of time. You might not get too much actually covered in that time, and it might make more sense to go someplace closer by, do a resort vacation where it's close by and easy to get to. So we're going to talk about, you know, sort of both time and money. And then, you know, I go back into the magic box and kind of think about what options exist, and we'll present some options to the bride and groom and let them kind of make a decision based on what they're interested in.
I almost feel like you might want to have 2 honeymoons, a quick one after the wedding where you can just kind of chill and relax, and then maybe you plan something bigger somewhere
yes,
down.
and that's actually very common, you know, and it can also depend on the time of the year of the wedding. You know, if you're getting married in the summer, you know, going to Mexico in the summer for a warm weather destination, you can just sit on your back porch and enjoy the warm weather. So that's definitely something that folks will do, you know, maybe go for a quick weekend to
The
Door
North Shore,
County or
yeah.
the North Shore or something like that, and then plan that bigger honeymoon later when time permits. And sometimes, too, you know, that wedding and the lead up to the wedding eats up a lot of people's vacation time. And so it's something where they can bank up a little vacation to have a little more time. So absolutely, you know, I think the days of folks hopping in the car and leaving right after the wedding, that's a lot less common than it was in the past. Or the carriage.
The carriage. Were you changed into your other outfit?
You change into your other
Oh,
outfit, yes,
so
yes.
sweet.
Well, you know, you have to go to the airport and go through security, so that other outfit might not be the best fit.
No kidding. Well, how do you help us then? How do you help us get all these details
Yeah,
worked
so it's
out?
really important, I think, to understand what people are looking for. And for couples especially, The honeymoon, I think, is a really big decision. The number one decision is probably who am I going to get married to? And then the number two decision is where is the honeymoon going to be? I have found actually that couples have a lot of conversation about this. When I talk to couples,
before they come to you.
Before they come to me. It's, I think, part of the process of planning the wedding and planning that whole chapter in life and the opening up of that chapter. And so I often find that brides and grooms have already had the negotiation that goes on behind the scenes every time a couple's going to go on vacation. Because, it's pretty typical that one member of the couple maybe has a little more interest in something than the other person. So there's a little give and take anytime you plan a vacation.
Not
and
the first time
No, not
happen.
the first time. No, and it won't be the last. But I've certainly found that a lot of couples have had that conversation. And in many cases, they've settled on a destination. And so then it becomes sort of what's the best way to visit that destination, to explore it, and to accomplish what it is they want to accomplish on the honeymoon. And, every destination you can go, you could stay at a resort. You might go on a cruise that visits that destination. You might go on more of an adventure trip where you're going to be doing some hiking and whitewater rafting and things like that. And so really it's to understand what you're interested in and get it put together, within the time and the budget that you have.
So the budget piece, when you mentioned budgeting your time, I never thought of that as well. You don't want to waste, if you don't have a lot of vacation, you don't want to waste time flying, let's say, to Bora Bora.
Yeah, it's too far for a weekend.
It is.
Yeah, you'd get off the plane, get right back on and come home.
So
yeah.
I think maybe you have to tell people these
things.
things.
And we have to have those discussions. Mm-hmm. And I think, we also have to have the discussions about, what are your expectations in terms of the types of places you're going to stay. Are you comfortable with something that's a little more simple? Or are you looking for something where you're really taken care of and, sort of weighted on hand and foot? And then how does that sync up with your, cash budget to make sure we can match those two things together? And I think in recent years in particular, the cost of travel has really increased pretty dramatically. And that has, I think, changed the dynamics for planning honeymoons a little bit. 5 or 6 years ago, if you had a $5,000 budget for your honeymoon, you could get pretty far on that. Nowadays, that isn't going to get you very far. And so understanding that dynamic and having a conversation about, how can we get the most out of that cash budget you have, but also the time you have. It's all kind of a big balloon. You push on one side and maybe something else has to give a little bit on the other side. But to have the conversation and present the alternatives and then choose the one that's right for you.
And I think people sometimes don't know how much travel has increased.
No, and they maybe don't have an understanding of what's a $7,000 a week resort. What's the difference between that and a $2,500 a week resort? And that's something that I spend a lot of time with my clients talking through. You can find an all-inclusive at virtually every price point, but there is a huge difference between the experience you have at a real top-of-the-line all-inclusive like a Sandals resort versus a low-priced all-inclusive. The same things might be included, but the quality of the meals, the quality of the service, the atmosphere, the cleanliness, the amenities in the room, the friendliness of the staff, that can vary quite dramatically. And those are really the things that make or break a vacation. And so to be able to share my firsthand knowledge and experience with people is helpful in allowing them to make the right decision.
As you've gotten more experience in your business, I know that you go on a lot of these vacations yourself, so you can really speak from experience about, I was there, I stayed at this resort. Do you find that you are more in tune to some of these things? Because I think an average traveler might not see all the things you see.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest occupational hazard of my job is it's kind of hard just to take a vacation and relax because I am always looking and watching and, testing things. Mm-hmm. I mean, one thing that really can separate a good quality resort or a good quality cruise ship from a kind of mediocre quality is how do they handle special requests? Or how do they handle it if something goes a little bit amiss? So sometimes I'll, sort of intentionally make a special request that's not doing it to torture anybody, but I want to see how they respond to
How big of a special request?
Well, for example, maybe let's say there's pizza isn't on the menu today for lunch. And
but
you asked for pizza.
You saw it yesterday.
Yeah, I saw it yesterday and I didn't order it because I had nachos instead. And so I thought I would try the pizza.
That's
and,
why we've lasted 2 years.
Exactly. And I just want to see if they can do it, if they can make it happen without a big stink. And some places can do it in a heartbeat, no problem, and they'll bring you the best pizza ever. Others are going to say no, or they're going to not be able to deliver. And so it's just, I test a lot of those types of things. And I also watch other people, because other people might have special requests. And one of my favorite resorts is a sandals resort that's in Jamaica. It's called Sandals Royal Plantation, and it's a smaller resort. It only has about 75 rooms. And Sandals are couples-only resorts, so no kids, no families, all just couples. And this resort, every room comes with a butler who is there to make things easy for you. And so I noticed one evening when I was there last year that about 5 o'clock, the butler would come down and he would deliver a pot of tea with a glass full of lemons to a particular person. And he did this every single night. And I realized, well, she had asked, she had sort of made a special request. Could I have a pot of tea every night at 5 o'clock when the sun goes down? And every night he delivered a pot of tea to her. And so, that's the level of service that I think everybody expects, but not every resort, not every cruise line can deliver. So to be able to see that in action, and at some point she made a special request, but it got noted and it got fulfilled every single night. I mean, that's impressive to see.
That is.
And that's, that you may not want a pot of tea. Maybe you want a beer or something else at 5 o'clock instead. But to know that the resort will file that away and every night they'll take care of that, that's kind of impressive. Mm-hmm. Same thing with knowing people's names and learning people's names. In a small property like that, it's pretty easy for the staff to know who you are and to say, good morning, Mr. Blank. And not all hotels can do that. So that's a lot of the way I travel, is to look at those things and kind of assess the service from my perspective. And I think it's also important to know that everyone has different interests and different preferences. And so I might share that story as a way to explain an example of good service. But that may not be what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And that's totally fine,
too. You maybe don't want people to talk to you.
You maybe don't want people to talk to you. Yeah, for example. Absolutely. So, it's to give people the best information possible so they can make the best decisions, because ultimately it is their honeymoon.
And I think if you are just looking strictly on the internet, everybody is putting their best foot forward, their best picture forward.
Correct.
Their best room forward.
Correct. Nothing looks bad on the internet. Everyone has a smile on their face.
Which makes you wonder when sometimes things aren't like 100% great. Why would anyone go there?
Well, exactly.
If they're showing their best, and that's
then
kind
you
of
get
mediocre.
then you get into the whole world of online reviews. And those are very, very subjective.
Oh, tell me more about this.
Yeah, so, online reviews, a lot of them are fake, first of all. But a lot of them are very subjective. And my assessment is subjective, too.
Of course.
But I'm going to be very transparent about that and say, here's why I'm saying this resort has good service. Here's an example of that. And I think with reviews, let's say somebody just really doesn't like pizza, and they have a pizza restaurant, and that's the option for lunch, and they get really mad about that. Well, that's maybe not telling you anything, because you might like pizza, for example.
Right.
And it can be the same with service. I've noticed that some people are just unlucky a little bit with service, but my perception of what is good service might be different than your perception of what is good service. And so that's what I want to be able to articulate to someone, rather than just saying the service here is poor. Here's what I mean by that, to help you understand.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. And, looking at price is really tough, too. And a lot of people, I think, are thrown off. The internet's designed to show you a low price. Mm-hmm. And that low price may or may not have any relationship to what you actually want. Or it may not matter. For example, if you're looking at cruises and you sort cruises based on price, something that people don't understand is the best and most popular cruises are going to fill up first. And so their lowest price staterooms are gone. So let's say that particular cruise ship, the only staterooms left are suites. And the competitor that isn't very good has all sorts of staterooms left. So the competitor comes up, this cruise from $13.99, and cruise number 2, the one that you probably should go on, comes up at $24.99 because it's a balcony and that's what's left. Well, then you start to go down the rabbit hole of the $12.49 cruise, and by the time you get done, it's $3,000 and you don't really know what you've gotten to. And so I think a lot of people can get very confused by that. And price isn't necessarily... There's a correlation between cost and quality, but price can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. And travel companies, you see this with airlines, they've made things so opaque and they have so many different little packages that are wrapped around things that it is really hard to get a genuine cost, an apples to apples comparison. And so that's where we can help folks who are planning a honeymoon, is to have those conversations and, talk about what you're really getting for this, and is something that's a different price, but maybe has more things included, a better option for you because you're going to end up spending that money there anyway. So that's part of the discussion. And, most honeymooners are younger people. People who are doing their first honeymoon are younger people, and so they might not be as savvy when it comes to those things. And so it's important for me to spend a lot of time with them to help them understand what it is that they're, what are we paying for beforehand? What expenses might we have when we get there? And, what's the experience going to be like?
Have you found that all-inclusives are a better deal for most people than, what do you call it, the European plan?
The European, it really depends.
Okay.
I think that when you look at the best all-inclusives,
Yes.
resorts like Sandals in Mexico, the Grand Velas properties, they deliver, I would say, 5-star levels of service and cuisine. But a lot of all-inclusives, the trade-off you make for lower cost is lower quality. And so, from a value perspective, you're paying less. You might be getting more from a quantity perspective, but it's lower from a quality perspective. Whereas a European plan type resort, you'll probably pay a little more when you figure all things into it, but the quality is going to be generally, I would say, higher across the board. Now, a Holiday Inn is a Holiday Inn, right? We're not necessarily talking about that. But if you look at a 5-star European plan resort versus a 5-star all-inclusive resort, there's going to be a pretty substantial difference in the quality that the non-European plan delivers in most cases.
Well,
there are some good all-inclusives out there. There are some that have really elevated their food experience, but the majority are definitely quantity over quality.
Okay, well, that's great to know as
Yep.
well. Any last thoughts on honeymoon planning?
No, it's one of those things, as soon as you've got your wedding date, reach out and start thinking about planning your honeymoon, because the advice of that early bird gets the worm is definitely true for honeymoons as well.
Ted, how can people get a hold of you, please?
Yeah, so we're actually going to be at a wedding fair in River Falls on Sunday, March 3rd from 11 to 2 at the St. Croix Valley Business Innovation Center. So you can come up and visit us then, or you can call me at 651-964-8245 or visit my website, tedblanktravel.com.
Love that. So good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great information. The Travel Show with your host, Ted Blank of Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure. And this is AM 1460 and FM 97.7 KDWA in Hastings. This travel show has been brought to you by Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure.